What is up, my Shadowverse soldiers, and welcome back to another Shadowverse Evolved video. So I want to say thank you guys so much for voting. I know I did it the last minute to set up this poll, but you guys did it very swiftly, and I appreciate that. So today we're going to be doing Runecraft. Alright, what is up, my Shadowverse soldiers? Happy Friday, we are here, we made it to the end of the week. So today we're going to be doing Runecraft and figure out what's coming out. So I know the legendary one of the cards, that being Giant Chimera, is going to be coming out, and then Ginger's another one. You guys know I'm a Runecraft specialist, so I know when these things are coming out. But I don't know exactly what they do. I know Giant Chimera deals a lot of damage due to Spell Chain, and we'll figure out that combo once this deck drops. But I do not know what Ginger does at all, so I'm ready to figure out what these cards are. So let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, so the first card we have is Astrologist of the Mist. So it's a 5 cost, it has Ward, and when it comes into play, you can Earthright, go ahead and get rid of a stack, and give +1/+1 to all of your followers. I can already think of a nice little combo going with this. You can go for Golem Protection, have all your Golems, and they already have +1/+1 if you do the Earthright. And you know if you're going to be using an Earthright, you have to have multiple stacks. So go ahead and have more than like 1 stack, probably 3 stacks. So you do that Golem Protection, you know, your Golems get +1/+1, and then you play Astrologist of the Mist. And then all your Golems get that extra +1/+1, and then swing with them. They'll have Ward, and this card also has Ward too, and it's a 5/5, so you have like a solid wall to hide behind. Alright, so next up we have Chain of Calling. It's a 2 cost quick spell. You look at the top 5 cards of your deck. From among them, you may reveal a Runecraft follower and add it to your hand. And then you put the rest to the bottom of your deck in any order. And then if you have Spell Chain 10 spells in your cemetery, you recover 1 play point. Now the real question is this better than Sorcery Cache? And I believe so. We finally have a way to look for Merlin, and that's the one thing we've needed, because there's no other way we can look for Merlin because it's a witch card. But the fact that we finally have a way to look for Merlin on your opponent's turn even is just absolutely amazing. And then there's also other targets, you know, if you're looking for Daria, Giant Chimera, either a Flame Destroyer, all those cards you're able to look for through this card. Alright, next up we have Concentration. So it's a 3 cost spell. You add 3 to your leader's health, and then you draw a card. But if you have Earthright, you draw 2 cards instead. So I can already think of a crazy concoction. Wizardess of Oz in this card is going to go absolutely insane, because you know she comes out and she already spawns 2 Earthright stacks, and then you can use this to go ahead and add 3 to your leader's defense, draw 2 because you have 2 stacks to already use, and sometimes you might not even use that second stack on your opponent's turn because they'll go ahead and figure out and remove Wizardess of Oz. Next up we have Dazzling Healer with some pretty nice art. She's a 2 cost 2/2. You can evolve her for 1, but when she comes into play, if there's a spell in your graveyard, add 2 to your leader's health. Well, finally, Spell Chain has a way to heal besides using the Gingerbread House, which was honestly weird in a way because you had that one amulet, or maybe if you ran 3 of it in your deck, if you're playing Spell Chain, and you had that one amulet that would just sit on the field until you either played Wizardess of Oz, if you even have that in your deck, or even Erasmus that you might be using in your deck, if you're using it, that is. Because if not, then it was just honestly a weird card with ratios, and I'm glad Dazzling Healer is here to actually replace that card in the form of a follower. And then we have Dazzling Healer Evolved. So if you have Spell Chain 5 on Evolve, you add 2 to your leader's health. I think this is a pretty neat combo, that when you have Spell Chain 5 and you play Dazzling Healer and you heal 2, and then if you have those 5 cards in Cemetery already, you know, in that late game, because you've been using spells to go ahead and stay alive, and using some defense and keeping with tempo with your opponent, they are eventually going to break through and hit you with something. So using Dazzling Healer to go ahead and recover 4 health is absolutely amazing. Alright, next up we have Europa. So it's a 2 cost 1/2. You can evolve her for 2, and then when she comes into play, you choose a faced up Europa from your evolve deck and flip it face down. This gets +1/+1. So it seems like if you're going to be running this card, you need to use multiple Europas, so you can have 1 Europa in your evolve deck faced up. So you can go ahead and flip it face down, and you can have another Europa that you can use to evolve into later on. So this is absolutely amazing. So Europa does evolve, and when she evolves, she has Storm, Bane, and Ward. And the fact that she's a 3 cost Ward and then a 5 defense with Bane. So anytime they swing into anything, especially in the early game, because she's a 2 cost, you can definitely, you know, crack back with some damage. You have a Ward. Your opponent's gonna have to find some very hard removal. It just sucks she doesn't have Aura because, you know, she can't be that broken. But that would have been absolutely amazing if she did have it. Alright, next up we have Freshman Low. So she's a 2 cost 1/2. When she comes into play, you search your deck for a 1 play point spell, and then you put it to your hand. So now we finally have a way to search for our 1 play point spells, that being Insights and whatnot, or Angelic Barrage, or Angelic Snipe even. so we don't have to use our play points for, you know, a fire chain on like a 1-cost follower that's a 2/2. Now I can just play Freshman Luau. She can potentially swing at that follower, or, you know, I can just use my 1 play point that I have left if I use her on turn 3 and use the Angelic Snipe. Alright, and next up we have Giant Chimera. So this is the card I've been hearing about a whole bunch. So it's a 7-cost 7/7. When it comes into play, you have Spell Chain 10, deal 5 damage to all enemy leaders and all enemy followers. If you have Spell Chain 20, deal 10 instead, and then if you have Spell Chain 30, deal 30 instead. So I'm glad that this card is still very powerful and still fair and balanced in a sort of way, because this takes a lot of time to set up. And the only way you're going to be able to be dealt 30 damage through Spell Chain 30 is if Daria is involved. And they know, any Runecraft player knows that if Daria is involved and you go for that shotgun play and it does not work out, then that's the end of the game. So watch out for that in the late game. Next up, we have Mage of the Nightfall with some amazing art. So it's a 3-cost 3/3. It has Intimidate, but when it comes into play, Earthright, it gains +2/+1. So finally, Rune has some aggression attached to it with, you know, Earthright. So this becomes a 5/4, which is pretty nice. So you can swing into it next turn and your opponent can swing into it. So it's a pretty good card for Swordcraft. But in other crafts like Havencraft or Dragoncraft that can really deal with this, then this card isn't really the go-to. Alright, next up we have Magic Illusionist. So he's a 2-cost 2/2. You can evolve him for 2, but he has a last words effect. So when he dies, Earthright, put this card onto the field. Alright, so I can say this card is very interesting. So at a point in time, whenever it dies, you can Earthright. Just make sure it doesn't get banished or bounced. Whenever it dies, you can use an Earthright stack to put this card back onto the field to go ahead and use it for its evolve cost. So let's see what the evolve cost does for this card. So looking at the Magic Illusionist evolve, so it has a last words effect of Earthright to put this card back onto the field. A pretty interesting card. If you have a whole bunch of stacks and they're not being used, and you really need to clear your opponent's board, I can see why this card would be very useful. But you're really using stacks just replay the same card over and over again. So if there's a way where, you know, whenever a Runecraft follower hits the field and have some sort of effect like that, that'd be pretty interesting. But unfortunately, I don't think there's any cards or any combos like that as of right now. Alright, and we have Magic Owl, so it's a 1-cost 1/1. It has Rush and Fanfare, and last words, discard a spell card from your hand, and then you draw a card. Alright, so this is pretty interesting for Spell Chain, because now we have a faster way of putting cards into our cemetery, with spell cards that being useless ones, of course. You basically play Magic Owl, and then you go ahead and discard a spell, draw a card, and then when you swing into something, since he has Rush and then he dies, you can do it again. So that's 2 cards in the cemetery already on potentially turn 1, and that's absolutely amazing. That's something we needed. Alright, and we have Starseer's Telescope. So for 0, it has a stack. When it comes into play, you look at the top card of your deck. So as a full-on Rune player, I know about control. The one thing that you want to know is what's on the top of your deck. If you know what you're going to draw into next turn, that's absolutely amazing. And then there's probably stacks that let you just draw a card, that being Teaching's Creations or other cards, so you can see what you're going to hit next. Unfortunately, it doesn't let you put it to the bottom of your deck, but it just lets you look at what's on the top of your deck. And it also helps on the fact that it costs 0, so you can use it out of your hand, and then you could potentially get free stacks for something you might use in that same turn. Alright, and we have World Wielder Ginger. So she's a 7-cost 4/4. You can evolve her for 2. When she comes into play, you may put a follower from your hand onto the field. Its Fanfare effect can't be used. This turn, it is unable to attack an enemy leader or follower in enemy field. So whatever comes to my mind whenever I see this card is that I can play any follower from my hand, and unfortunately they don't get their Fanfare effects, but if they're able to evolve, I can evolve them that turn if I have the extra play points. And that's pretty cool, because if I wanted to play Merlin, unfortunately I don't get the spell from my deck in the free shuffle, but I do get to evolve her and use a card out of the cemetery, that being a spell card, anything 3 or less, and that might come up with some interesting combos. So let's figure out what World Ginger does on Evo. Alright, so we got the World Ginger Evo. So on Evolve, you may put any number of followers from your hand to the field. Their Fanfare effects can't be used this turn. They are unable to attack an enemy leader or follower in the enemy field. But that's okay, you know, we're playing Runecraft, and any of my Runecraft saviors that are still out there pushing. Shout out to Dean for being Runecraft's strongest soldier. But it's very hard to play Runecraft. You definitely need to know what you need to do. You need to know your matchups. It's not really the best deck, but it does have the potential to succeed just like every other deck does. Alright, and let's go ahead and look at the alternate cards. So we have Chain of Calling for the first card, and then we have Concentration, and then we have the Cornelia Lee Britannia Leader, which is absolutely amazing. I cannot wait to have this on my hands. I'm just so ready. I've been waiting ever since I started this channel. I've wanted this leader. I've wanted to rock it, and I'm ready. It's finally time. I am just so excited that Code Geass finally got confirmed, and we are soon coming to have these cards in our hand. Alright guys, well that is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you're safe in whatever you do tonight, and safe whatever you do for the rest of the year. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.
I gave you all my love, baby, my heart is cold when you're around. You warm it up, liquid gold, baby, yeah, you warm it up, liquid gold, baby, and my affection, all that paper you wasted. Take my love.